Hello and welcome back to Dominion Prosperity 2nd Edition previews. This is day 3, the last day. We're going to get to see the last 3 cards coming in, the last 3 cards going out, and then the whole set with, or the whole 2nd Edition set with all of the errata changes that there may be. So kicking things off, we have Royal Seal going into Tiara. Donald X says, Royal Seal has a great ability with too high of an opportunity cost. I don't know if I would say it's a great ability. I mean, it's certainly useful, but well, whatever. It plays well when there's really nothing better for 5 coins, which of course there pretty much always is. Tiara has the Royal Seal ability and also is a throne room for treasures. And hey, +1 buy. It really wants you to like it. Okay. Yeah, Royal Seal, no surprise whatsoever that's leaving. It's a pretty weak card. Just a card that you hardly ever gain or buy. So, yeah, this one seemed like a slam dunk to go. Tiara is +1 buy. This turn, when you gain a card, you may put it onto your deck. You may play a treasure from your hand twice. So this, is not probably a card that you're going to want early, because doubling a copper is like a copper. So this would be like, I mean, it's better than the pouch because of the top decking. It's similar-ish to Tracker in the early game. You don't get the boon, but you don't need terminal space to play it. Whether terminal space is worth spending on a boon, I mean, usually in the early game it isn't. But the lack of the boon, or like the fact that this doesn't take up terminal space doesn't probably really make up for the lack of the boon. Something like that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I think it's not really going to be a card you're going to want to open with very much. Maybe if you want like some cheap stuff that you want to play quickly, like you could open this with like on a peasant or a page board if you want multiples of those and get those into play more quickly. Although, like, even then, like if you open peasant Tiara and then you buy another peasant, if you don't see your peasant, you might end up colliding them, so it can still be awkward. Going, further into the game, when the quality of your treasures increases, obviously this will get better. It will, at best be as good as the best treasure in your deck. Which obviously what that means is going to vary greatly depending on the kingdom. If platinum is around and you can pair it up, that's pretty fantastic. If crown is around, you can do some shenanigans with that in your buy phase, where you're well, I guess crown can't play an action in your buy phase anyway, so never mind. That's too bad. You can do capital stuff with this. You can, I mean, it's similar to crown capital. You can get like a net 6 coins from capital, like after paying the debt. Or, obviously in general with capital, like you can do spiky stuff at the end and then not have to pay the debt because the game ends. But even before that, you can have like a six coin net. So that's fun. I mean, essentially, it's roughly the same as playing Tiara on a gold, because you do get the plus buy from Tiara anyway. I mean, you get 2 extra buys if you're doing it on capital, and that's not worthless, but it's not necessarily like the most important thing. But yeah, obviously the fact that the debt can be deferred also makes it more flexible than playing it on a gold. So, I mean, there are things you can think about with crown. Like usually when you play crown, you're wanting to play it on action cards, but there are cases where you do play it on treasures, and you can kind of think about those situations and how good it is there. I do think that on a lot of boards, Tiara is going to struggle to be particularly valuable because, like, depending on how much deck control you have, like if you're consistently drawing your deck and you can absolutely make sure that your Tiara is pairing up with your best treasure, then great, fine. You get the top decking effect. So you take at least one of these over, just having a copy of whatever that treasure is, and now you get the top decking effect as well. So that that makes sense. But if you aren't totally consistent there, and you're like, well, I might end up having to Tiara a copper or even a silver, that's like, it's maybe not really worth it. If you're consistently hitting at least like a gold, it's probably perfectly fine. If you're able to hit obviously like platinum, I mean even something like counterfeit, although the timing on that is a little awkward because you're going to want to get the counterfeit first, and then by the time you get the Tiara and are able to collide them, you probably don't need to do so much trashing at that point. But if you can manage it, that'll be nice. And I mentioned the capital thing. There's, it's pretty good with stockpile, although, it's probably hard to justify buying a Tiara over just another stockpile. There's probably some other things that I'm not thinking of, and potentially including the remaining cards in this preview. But yeah, overall it seems like probably middling to weak to me, but it's hard to say exactly. The fact that Crown so often wants to be played on actions makes it harder to tell like when you would want to pick it up for the purpose of doubling a treasure. And obviously this is better at specifically that. It's cheaper and it gives you a buy, and it gives you top decking. So like, if there are boards where you wanted to pick up Crown in order to be able to play it on a treasure, like, well, this is just way better at that. But again, usually that's not what you want. So it's a little bit of a new space to evaluate, and it really is just going to depend on like how well you can collide it. Because like again, if you're doubling something like platinum, Tiara is a lot cheaper than platinum, and it gives you a buy. Platinum doesn't give you a buy, and it gives you the top decking. Platinum doesn't give you top decking, so that's all really good. It's just not clear to me how often you're actually going to have a deck composition where you have that high value treasure and you're confident in your ability to line it up with Tiara. So that's pretty much what you're going to want to look out for with this card. And yeah, I can't really say offhand like how often that's going to happen or not. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. And it'll definitely be better than Royal Seal. I mean, there's no question about that. Like even if you're playing this on a copper, I would say it's better than Royal Seal because it's it's coming in cheaper, it's giving you the buy. Like, I mean, if you bought it specifically knowing that you were only ever going to play it on copper, then maybe it's not better than Royal Seal at that point, but why would you do that? Yeah, I mean, easily better than Royal Seal. Not that that's a particularly hard threshold to meet, but All right, moving on to number 2, we've got Talisman into Anvil. Talisman was okay, but was going to need 2 kinds of errata, not being a while in play and not triggering on buys. At some point I thought, why not just replace it? It was borderline already. Anvil then is a very simple treasure workshop. Yeah, so Talisman was an interesting one because I think a lot of people felt like it was like a fine card to have. From a power level standpoint, and from I don't think there were too many people who were saying like Talisman is like a card I dislike a lot, and want removed for that reason. But yeah, the rules, the direction that the rules have been going in, where the cards that like are losing while in play and losing, you know, by triggers, made Talisman a really like rough thing to imagine hanging on to. Like you could imagine that it said, you know, like this turn when you gain a non-victory card costing 4 or less that you bought, gain a copy of it. Although, you know, I mean that's like wordier, and it's still kind of awkward. It doesn't avoid the problem where somebody thinks that the like a card that they, you know, gain from like an event, say, you know, there, I have no doubt that people would think like, oh, if I buy like, I don't know, demand for, you know, like an Ironmonger or whatever, that then I get another one, right? Because that's a 4 cost, and you know, Talisman, you know, never let you do that, and it wouldn't let you do that, even if you changed it in that way. And then if you changed it to allow for any type of gains, even if it was just in your buy phase, like if it had a Merchant Guild type restriction where it's like, you know, during your buy phase, you know, when you gain a card, then you'd have to have the experiment clause where it's like you gain a copy that doesn't come with another copy. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, I totally understand that. So not super surprising there. Anvil, the replacement, Swan coin, you may discard a treasure to gain a card costing up to 4. Okay, so this is Way of the Rat. It's non-terminal, and it doesn't require that you... Oh no, sorry, not Way of the Rat. This is Earth's Gift? Am I getting that right? It is Earth's Gift, right? I'm like, for some reason I don't feel confident about that right now. I'm pretty sure it's Earth's Gift. Yeah. I mean, Way of the Rat is similar, but Way of the Rat can gain any action. This only gains... Wait. A very simple treasure workshop. Okay, when I read that, I assumed he meant a workshop for treasures, and no, he means a workshop that is a treasure. So yeah, so how good is this? It's going to be harder to do gain and play stuff with it compared to, you know, vanilla workshop or whatever else. It's also like more hand size intensive. It's non-terminal, so it has that going for it. But having to play 2 cards to gain your 4 cost is pretty annoying. And it does. I mean, the fact that it generates a coin at all, I guess, is kind of nice considering it's a gainer anyway. Yeah, this is a kind of a weird one. So like if you open with this, you're not really expecting to hit, you know, much of a price point. Like, you know, if you have Anvil 3 coppers in an estate in your hand, you're gonna get like a 4 and a 3. Which is, I guess it's important to note that this is not mandatory. You may discard a treasure, so you can keep the treasure in your hand if you need it to hit some price point. But yeah, there's some like trade-off there between like gaining, you know, cheap cards and like what your actual buy potential is going to be. So like I could definitely see you opening this if your goal is to just gain a bunch of cheap stuff. Is definitely not going to be good at hitting 5. I mean, that the fact that it's a copper should make that obvious enough. But you know, I mean, in that sense, it is comparable to Talisman, because Talisman was also a card where you would, if you did open it, it was because you wanted to gain a bunch of cheap stuff, and this is going to have a similar effect. More flexibly, because you can get 2 different cards, but arguably less powerfully because the need to discard a treasure means, things like, I have to gain like a 4 and a 3 instead of 2 4s or something like that. Though it doesn't have the non-victory limitation, which is interesting. I mean, it's only up to 4, so that usually isn't like a huge deal. But in a game with, I don't know, like gardens or Silk Roads or something like that, where for whatever reason those are really relevant. I mean, those are usually not that strong. But in theory, that could be relevant. One thing I'm trying to think about with this is, so the fact that you discard the treasure during your buy phase, like how often is that going to matter? Like one thing that occurs to me immediately is if you have Crystal Ball as well, and you want to trash like a copper, you can discard a copper, gain the card, and then play Crystal Ball. And I guess you're only going to have a 50-50 shot of trashing, even if you've drawn your deck, because you've got the card that you gained as well as the copper, but still, that's something. I mean, I guess Crystal Ball, if you hit the other card, Crystal Ball can play it, which could be nice, depending on what it is. Gamble would be another, potential synergy there. But yeah, I think this is one of those cases where the power level is actually pretty similar, and really the change that we're getting here is mostly about the rules, about like making the card conform to like sort of modern Dominion rule standards. I don't really see this being dramatically different in power level from Talisman. Like it's filling a fairly similar role, and it's like I would say probably going to do it roughly as effectively. There are going to be differences for sure, but I think they're fairly similar overall. And then finally, we have Goons becoming collection. Donald X says, Goons, you've made me so many VP tokens. It's good times, except for the militia part. And then you get Goons first and militia them so they can't afford Goons. And then militia every turn. It just sucks the fun out of the other part, which is so good. Collection is trying to be not just a Goons replacement, but also a different card. I didn't just want Goons minus the militia. So it's a treasure, making it easy to play multiples, but cares about actions specifically, so you can't buy up coppers for it, or victory cards. It's a different version of the Goons experience. Okay. So I have said already, I wouldn't have removed Mountebank, I wouldn't have removed Ghost Ship. But I do understand why they removed, and I do sympathize with the perspective that the cards could be unfun. Like they could create kingdoms that weren't fun. Now, I'm not going to say that Goons never did that. Like Goons could certainly have like snowbally kingdoms. There is that phenomenon where like you get the Goons first, then you Goons them, and they can't afford Goons. That definitely does happen, although it's usually only in a certain type of Goons kingdom where it's particularly difficult to thin, and like you're struggling to get like enough payload into your hand. I would not say it's the common case. Regardless of that, the thing I really object to this, and this is like the first time that I've really been like I just strongly object to this card being replaced. Goons is a really fun card. Like, yes, there are bad cases, but it's a really fun card, and it does something that is very different from other things, and not in a way that is like, for the most part, like sadness inducing. It is like, yeah, the militia attack, like, okay, but the VP generation and the stuff that goes into that, I think is great. I think it's somebody was saying on Discord that it's like an iconic Dominion card. I completely agree with that. I think that like it is it is definitely more powerful than it needs to be, like, no question, but I don't care. Like, it's kind of like Wharf that way, where Wharf really doesn't need the plus buy. Like there was this in the Secret History or whatever, like that apparently Wharf got plus buys that it could compete with Merchant Ship, ha ha ha. Okay, fine. When you're first developing this stuff, you don't necessarily know how these things are going to play out. So that sort of thing will happen, power imbalance. But fortunately, the way that Dominion is constructed, that's fundamentally okay because both players have access to the card. It's not maybe ideal, but it's okay. But yeah, Goons is too powerful. I don't care. It's fun. I so strongly disagree with the decision to remove it. Like so strongly. And I know like the standard boilerplate response is, yeah, well, nobody is like going to come, and rip up your Goons cards. This is true. However, if you only play on the Dominion Online client, you're not going to see Goons anymore. And that sucks. So yeah, I thumbs down to this. Sorry, but that's just the way that it is. Like I probably won't really miss the most, if any, of these other cards that much. I will definitely miss Goons, and I'm like, why couldn't we have just taken out Vault or Forge? Those were the two cards, like, because Vault is super fiddly and not that good, and Forge is not that good and awkward. And I would really like to see a version of Forge that does what Forge is trying to do, but does it better. We're also losing a 6-cost card, which is dropping down to a 5-cost card, which is kind of anti-theme here. We also, a Talisman actually gets replaced with Royal Seal gets replaced with a 4-cost. Like 5-cost gets replaced with a 4-cost. Talisman's a 4-cost gets replaced with a 3-cost Anvil, and then here we have Goons as a 6-cost gets replaced by Collection, which is a 5-cost. So that's all kind of anti-theme. Not that that really matters, but what does matter is that I cannot. I'm just. Oh no! I just don't want to see Goons go. I don't agree with the reasoning. I'm unlike Mountebank and Ghost Ship. I'm just not really sympathetic to the reasoning. I don't think, militia attack, it's a thing. It's fine. Like, the card is too powerful, yes, but you can both get Goons and you can both do your militia attack and get lots of points, and it's good times. I just, damn it. And an interesting thing to note with Mountebank and Ghost Ship in particular is that the description was, there are cards that don't allow you to see your deck. And that's really not the case with Goons. So, yeah. Anyway, all right. I guess I should look at Collection instead of just complaining about Goons leaving. But, man, it's so disappointing. So, Collection is a 5-cost treasure, 2 coins, +1 buy. This turn when you gain an action card, +1 VP. So, yeah. As Donald X said, trying to do what Goons did, but also different. And it certainly is different. It's gonna be a lot weaker, no question. Not even putting aside that it doesn't have the attack. Like, we can just pretend that Goons doesn't have the attack. This card is worse at doing, what it's trying to do. They're generating the same amount of economy, and this one is cheaper, but the limitation to action cards, I think, is significant for a couple of reasons. One is, like, you can't do like the copper stuff or whatever. I don't actually think that's like the most important reason. The most important reason is that it doesn't self-synergize. If you want to have a bunch of collections that you can get a bunch of points, when you're buying the collections, you aren't getting the VP chips. And the significance of that is going to increase. Like, Goons isn't linear, right? It accelerates. Each additional, maybe it depends. I guess it depends on how you look at it. But I mean, basically, the point is like with more goons, you get more points per gain. Is really where I'm going with this, and like so. The part that is accelerating is in the sense that like if you have 4 goons in play and you buy your 5th goons, that's worth more points than when you have 1 goons in play or buy your 2nd goons. So if you have 4 collections in play and you buy the 5th collection, the opportunity cost in terms of points is higher. Like you're missing out on the opportunity to get the points for some other action card that you would buy instead. That might actually be really interesting, like from a decision standpoint. Like that might be good for gameplay. But just in terms of the power level, it will definitely be weaker from that perspective. And then it also just means that your deck is like you're trying to buy action cards with collection, or I mean potentially gain them during your buy phase, or get collection into play during your action phase, then gain them during your action phase, whatever. But you're trying to do that. And a lot of actions don't synergize well with having very many treasures in your deck. And so there's going to be some tension there. I mean, there are cards that do, like Magnate, one of the new cards in this group. So it's certainly not impossible that you could end up with, a deck that like works really nicely there. But again, the need to add like, the collections to your deck, and then also like get action cards, which like in general aren't going to synergize with having the collections in your deck. Like it's all going to be more awkward than goons. So yeah, I mean, there it'll still be able to do like well, and then the other thing I guess is that like the fact that it doesn't gain VP for victory cards is also definitely relevant. Like, I mean, you sort of think of goons as like, you never need to green, you just buy like whatever. But in practice, in a mirror, there's a lot of times where you do need to buy green, because what you need to be able to do is maximize the amount of points that you're scoring per buy. And that can often mean, that you buy a province so that like in addition to the 5 goons VP or whatever, you get another 6 VP on top of that, and that gives you a buffer against what your opponent might be able to do on their turn. Or it gives you the reach to pile out, because you're like, well, I need, I'm not going to have enough points unless I also take this province or whatever. Collection, again, is going to make that a problem, because you buy a province and now you're not getting your collection VP. You could potentially get to a point where buying green cards is almost worthless, because you get basically the same amount or more, points buying something else, depending on how many collections you have and what green cards you'd potentially be buying and so on. Which I'm not sure what to expect that to do in like to an end game, because in a way it might actually push piles more, because you need to take the actions in order to score, or alternatively, depending on how many collections you have, like maybe I don't know. I guess it'll just depend, but it'll definitely make for some complex decision making, and that is probably a good thing. So I'm not. I guess I'm saying all this about collection is weaker than goons. I don't say that because I think it's like, oh, and so I hate collection and I want goons back. I do want goons back, but I'm not saying that collection is like a badly designed card. I'm just saying, like, if you're used to goons and you look at this card and you're like, okay, well, this is the new goons, I think you're going to find that it doesn't live up to your expectations. I think it'll still be good. Like, if you compare this to Plunder, for example, it doesn't allow you to keep your encampments, but you don't have to get through the encampments to get access to it. It gives you a buy, and you have to buy one action card for it to generate as many points per turn as plunder. That's not, too high of a bar to cross. And if you buy multiple, then it gives you more points. Granted, if you're greening, again, then it starts to look maybe worse than plunder, depending on how valuable the buys are. But still, like in terms of like the overall generation of VP, it should be significantly better, even in the cases where it's not crazy explosive. So, I mean, I do think it's going to be a good card, but I think it's going to be substantially worse than Goons. There's a lot of space in there, right? So where that exactly lands it, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, I think this will be a cool card. I think it will be fun to play with. I just wish that we were replacing Vault, basically. Yeah, that's my view on that. All right, so moving on, we've got the full set here. I've made this about as big as I can. So hopefully it's visible now. I understand, it is pretty small. So there are a handful of tweaks. Donald X says specifically 3. Another general rule for him was to not do when buy triggers anymore. I guess Mint is one that had that before. And Grand Market. I don't know why I'm trying to guess. Rather than just like reading the text, but I guess it's kind of fun. Oh, Horde. Yeah, when you buy a green card. Okay, so those are the cards that I'm expecting to have been changed. So he said, if at all possible, those became when gain triggers. In a few cases, I felt stuck and did when you gain this if you bought it. So Horde is one of those. Now both of this turn and a when gain. So specifically, Horde says this turn when you gain a victory card, if you bought it, gain a gold. I don't think that's necessary. I think it could have just been this turn when you gain a victory card, gain a gold. Like, does it really matter if you can gain a gold when you triumph or you dominate? Like, I don't see the problem. If it was too problematic without the if you bought it part, Donald X says, but he doesn't say why. I don't get it. Like, why would it be? I'm trying to think of what else you can do. I mean, if you can get the Horde into play mid-turn, you can gain like a whole bunch of golds. If you have Storyteller, Villa, whatever, you could potentially gain a whole bunch of golds with, I don't know, Groom or something. Like, so what? Like, what's wrong with that? That'd be cool. I mean, maybe it would be annoying. Like, maybe you wouldn't want all those golds. But I think it would be interesting if you had that as an option at the very least. But yeah, I don't understand what the reasoning is for like, oh, this would be a problem. I think it'd be fine. Oh well. Maybe Donald X will go into more detail on that at some point. So Mint can just trigger on gain, and so it does. So Mint now says, when you gain this, trash all non-duration treasures you have in play. It says you may reveal a treasure card from your hand, gain a copy of it. So that's still the same. Yeah. So the treasures do have to be in play. So the when you gain it part of Mint is like, at a glance you might think, oh, I can gain the Mint now. Like, I could gain it with, like, University or something. Well, or, Altar, I don't know. Not really, because the treasures aren't going to be in play, realistically speaking. I mean, they could be. There's going to be... It will come up more often than literally never that, like, you played a Storyteller and some coppers, and then you gain a Mint with your University or whatever, and you trash the coppers. Hooray. But it's going to be really rare. So, yeah, in practice... it's going to be pretty similar. Like, I'm trying to think if there's any way to, like, I guess Horn of Plenty could gain you a Mint, but then you have to trash the Horn of Plenty, what else is going to gain you a mint during your buy phase without buying it? Because most of the events, I guess Bargain could do it. You know, Bargain for mint on like turn 1 or 2 could be a thing, I guess. Maybe, depending on what else is on the in the kingdom. Huh. That will be interesting. There's also borrow. I guess you could always borrow for mint anyway, so that's not so different. Yeah, like the ones that are like cost adjusty are not so much the issue. I don't know. There's probably other ones. Bargain is one that jumps to mind, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be a huge change for mint, but there will be cases. And then we have, and then Quarry. Wait, Quarry? Oh, I guess Grand Market is you can't buy this if you have any coppers in play. It doesn't trigger on buy. It's just like saying, yeah. So that's fine. Quarry was a. Oh, I guess yeah. While this is in play, that makes sense. That Quarry was that. But now it's converted to this turn, and he also says this incidentally means you can use Tiara on Quarry and Horde, which is ideal. Sure. I mean, I don't think that doesn't like. It's good that you can do it. I don't think it's super relevant, but it's good that you can do it. Yeah. So, I mean, overall, the set is definitely much improved. There's no question about it. I think, I'm gonna have a hard time remembering all of the Seaside 2E cards. Although I guess I could really quick, let's see, re-grab the image that he made for those. And let's see if I can do that. And grab that. And pow! There you go. Here's Seaside 2E. So here are the cards that we got new in Seaside 2E are Astrolabe, Monkey, Pirate, Sea Chart, Corsair, Sailor, Sea Witch, Tide Pools, Blockade. Oh man, I totally forgot about Blockade. I have not seen a preview game with Blockade yet. I actually don't think I've seen one with Tide Pools either, but I haven't forgotten about it because I like to rag on it. Yeah, so those 9 cards versus Anvil, Charlatan, Collection, Investment, Crystal Ball, Clerk, Magnate, Tiara, War Chest. It's hard. I know that it's hard to get a sense for all of those at once, but my view on this is that overall Prosperity 2E is winning in terms of adding good cards to the pool. Interesting cards, I don't know. That's even harder to measure, and I don't like have like a real opinion on which set of cards is more interesting. But I think like that. To me, even though I haven't really played with them much, like Tide Pools, I'm quite confident is a dud. Pirate, I think, is probably a dud. Corsair seems like a dud. Blockade, I don't remember what I said about. I'll just like leave that to the side for now. I think the rest of them are probably fine. And then of the Prosperity 2E cards, I don't know that any of them are duds, really. They all seem at least fine, if not good, to me. So yeah, I think Prosperity 2e is coming out ahead here just in terms of power level stuff, not introducing cards that one might later think should also be removed. You know, like kind of like Harbinger, right? Harbinger is an example of Harbinger was added in second edition for base, and you know, if it had been in base first edition, it would be a candidate for removal because it doesn't really do anything. Kind of like Pearl Diver. And I don't think my initial impression is I don't think we got anything like that in Prosperity 2e. I think we did in Seaside 2e. Specifically, I think Tide Pools, if nothing else, is like just bad. Corsair and Pirate, maybe those will be like good enough, right? So maybe Dud is too strong. But Tide Pools, man, ugh. But Prosperity, I really don't see anything like that. So that's good. It's just that we also lost Goons, and that's bad. So, you know, you got to take the good with the bad, I guess. In any case, that will do it for Prosperity 2e previews. Everything should now be live on the client. You should be able to play with all the new cards, as well as, of course, all the Seaside 2e cards and all the Allies cards. This has been a ridiculous year for Dominion. I've said this already, but it remains true. And apparently there's going to be an expansion this fall. So, yeah, just absolutely insane. That's going to be with, you know, like if it really is this fall, that's like no more than like 5 months. Madness. Absolute madness. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I guess I'll catch you in, I don't know, like I said, like 5-ish months at the most for reviewing whatever the new expansion is. Of course, you can also check out my actual playing of Dominion whenever I have another match. So until one of those things.